So it's my great pleasure today to be sitting with my old friend Fiona Faery, that's Faery .ie, who's one of Ireland's leading psychic mediums. And I've known Fiona for a while. She is a wonderful individual who's told me things that I would never have imagined about myself. And you can dream what they are. But Fiona, we're here to chat now. And tell me, explain first of all, what is a medium?
Well, a medium, as the term suggests, is a bridge between the living and those in spirit world. I don't like to say dead because I truly believe the soul lives on forever. So a medium can sense those that have passed on to the afterlife.
And a lot of people have been kind of quite skeptical about that. And I have to admit, I was myself before I started this, and I was kind of impressed with what you do. Explain what it is you do for people.
Well, the term psychic medium is, you see, I do believe we're all psychic, and I believe every single one of us can sense things about people. One of the most widely accepted forms of psychic ability is a mother's intuition. So you can't tell a lie to your mum, I know where you were last night, etc. So I believe we all have that ability. But it's like going into a gym. You're not going to go into a gym and lift the heaviest weight. You're going to go and lift the tiny weight. And it's like that with your third eye. You're working your psychic muscle the whole time. Now, some of us could be, and I can use the analogy of a piano player. You know, some people are born to be amazing piano gifted. Some people have to go to school and learn. And some people will only learn to a moderate standard. We are all different. And so we can all learn to develop that ability. Whereas a medium can connect with those that are deceased. So a psychic can read people's ability here. So they can read things about your life, about what's happening in your life. But they don't necessarily have to be able to connect with spirit. And that's where the term fortune teller comes from. And so, but you can be a psychic medium, so you can read for people and you can connect to spirit. So that's where mediums get a bit annoyed if they're called fortune tellers, because that only means you can connect directly with one person's energy. So a psychic is about you, your life, what's coming your way, and a medium is a bridge between the living and those that have crossed over.
Very good. The way Fiona explained this to me before was that it's like intuition. So we all have a sense that something's coming, but her intuition is a lot more fine-tuned, which kind of made sense to me. You do card readings and you do spirit readings, is that the right term?
Mediumship, yeah.
Mediumship. So what's the difference between the two?
So a card reading is like what I was saying there in a psychic reading. So I would use my cards, and to be quite frank with you, I don't need cards. I can just go into your energy, but I think that freaks people out, you know. So the cards are great to point to and say, where did you see that there, you know, and it makes people more relaxed. And I use a combination of oracle cards, because again, I think some people can be skittish with tarot, where I love tarot, but I use the very gentle oracle cards. But a psychic reading is whereby I look at that person, I look at what they're attracting their way, what's going on with them. I use that with all of my abilities. So most people are familiar with clairvoyance, which is clear seeing, but that can also be used as a psychic ability, where I get a memory link playing in my head. But I'm also clairsentient, which is clear feeling, clairaudient, which is clear hearing, claircognizant, which is clear knowing, and clairgustant, clear tasting, and clairalience, clear smelling. Now, all those abilities, right? A lot. They're the French. But all those abilities blend in together. And that's as the channel that comes through me. So when I'm doing a psychic reading, I'm tuning into what's going on in that person's body. Now, no psychic should ever be used to diagnose health issues. What I do, pick them up, but I always say go to your GP or practitioner. I'm very strict about the ethics in that. But I will have a look at what's happening around that person, where they are in their life. There could be a life lesson. I tend to focus my readings primarily on a spiritual point of view about what's best for that person, what's working for them, if they're in the middle of a big life lesson. And I will give guidance according to that. Now, as for the future aspect, I think we have so many different aspects coming in there. So I'll touch on the one which I feel is the most likely, and I will give them a likelihood of events coming their way. I will never do diagnosis or death. I'm very strict about that.
Or lottery numbers.
Or lottery numbers, okay. So that's psychic. Mediumship is whereby I connect my sitter to their loved ones in spirit, and I give them validation, basically, and evidence. So names, passing conditions, personalities. I like to go into a personality and really bring that person to life and give them information that there's no way I could know, you know. And then some spirit know how I work, so then it can be really funny. They might give me evidence of, say, if I'm connecting to somebody and say, oh, you just visited their grave yesterday and you laid yellow flowers. I'd like to go for the specific colour. or there was a significant birthday 3 days ago. So there's no way I could possibly know this information. So Spirit are giving me this information, and it's just to prove evidence and validation. It doesn't cure grief. I mean, I think grief is the price we pay for love, but it certainly punches a hole through it, and it gives us that proof that we do live on, and that we're constantly trying to help our loved ones here.
Yeah, whenever I've been talking to people about going and visiting Fiona, there's always two things that they'll say. The first thing they'll say is, oh, I don't believe in that stuff. And the second thing they immediately also say is, can I meet her? And I always think that's very curious. I think it's the difference between, I went up perhaps feeling slightly skeptical but not cynical. And I have to say, I was definitely won over. You must have a lot of interesting people come and see you. I believe you even had some members of religious orders.
Yes, I've read for priests and nuns. I've read for judges, barristers, solicitors, criminals. There's, I mean, it's across the board. But unfortunately, due to the structure of our society and very patriarchal driven society, very sexist, very religious, there's so much shame within our culture. And so a lot of people, we go back to our pagan beliefs. We do have a major belief and fascination in this. I mean, we come from tribes where there was healers and wise women, and this is within our DNA. But we've been conditioned to have a shame response to that, and to pour scorn on it. So it's something that we'll kind of, come here, I heard about your one, what he's talking about, oh, no way, and we'll almost suss out, does somebody believe that?
It's like the confessional.
Absolutely. So I even find with my social media following on Instagram, I'm one of these kind of like guilty pleasures that people don't necessarily want to recommend the page, but will come up to me at any of my shows and say, I love your page so much. But they're almost afraid to recommend it for fear of scorn and like, you don't believe in that crap, do you? Are you for real? And so it's almost like there is a massive amount of people that believe in what I do, yet they're afraid to support it because of fear of judgment and shame values connected around it.
So what happens in Fiona's stays in Fiona's. I think that's the point that's sort of been made. It's very curious, the response you get to people when you say it. I'm wondering, do you have a family heritage that had sort of skills and gifts in this area?
Well, it's interesting because on Monday I'll actually be in a graveyard of my great-great-aunt Carrie, who was a tea leaf reader. So I'll be going to the graveyard. There was her sister that was also, they were both really good tea leaf readers, and we've only discovered the second grave there a few months ago. So I'll be going with my family on Monday to actually lay flowers at her grave. So my great-grandmother was a tea leaf reader, my nanny Elizabeth Carey, and she was gifted at it. I mean, it was a rite of passage in the Carey family if she read your tea leaves. And even for the boys, it was a transition from being out of short trousers to long trousers. You knew you were becoming a man if she read your tea leaves for you, because you were now an adult. But on my father's side, my nanny Bridget, she was actually told to leave her parish of 6 Mile Bridge when she was only a young girl, because she was seeing people and was mentioning names of people that had died. So she was sent to work in a scullery in Dublin, which is where she met my granddad. And it wasn't spoken about till years later. So I actually have that heritage on my dad's side and on my mum's side.
Wow. It's a fascinating gift. You went to study this over in the UK as well, is that right?
Yeah. So I have always been fascinated by it. I've always had a pull to the occult, because I was always trying to really understand who I was. And this is the thing about mediumship. It's really a journey of who you are as a person. It's not about profiting or a material aspect. Yes, what I do now is a spiritual business, and I make no apology for that. But for me, it has been a journey, utmost about my own spiritual journey. And so that's what I wanted to discover. So I would have attended psychic development courses when I was in my early 20s, and then I went over to England because, again, Ireland just does not have, now it has now, but back when I was in my early 20s, it just didn't have, I think it's still underneath the control of the church, so there wasn't the depth and richness of education here. So I went over to England to study with mediums over there and to develop my abilities. And then I brought that back here. But what I found was lacking, and I mean no disrespect to English mediums, but they're English, they're not Irish. And so us Irish are very emotional, we're very passionate. And so for me, that's where there's a massive gap in the industry for Irish mediums, because we like to invoke our ancestors, we like to be quite emotional with our connections, and we use humour. And they're quite more stricter over in the UK with their delivery, and some spiritual churches will be even more, because there's a very strict way of communicating. Whereas Irish mediumship isn't like that. It's actually very humorous, and very passionate, and very much connected to the essence of our ancestors.
I couldn't get over. I had the pleasure of visiting one of your shows recently in Dublin. I know you've been touring the country with shows. Absolutely jam-packed, terrific evening. I'm surprised at the number of people who attended. Clearly there is either a covert or an overt belief in, and maybe a growing belief in this. Is this linked to sort of spirituality in the modern world?
I think we're all looking for something, and I'm agnostic, and I think a lot of people are very surprised to hear that about me. I don't subscribe to any religious views. I do believe there's a divine, and I believe that if you have religious views and religion works for you, that's really beautiful. But I've seen too much damage and polarization that religious does, and any religion for me that is homophobic or sexist or in any way, shape or form, it's just not for me. And I just, from what I have been shown throughout my lifetime of connecting with spirit, is that I believe in energy. I believe that we will all return to source. And I do believe that we carry our ancestors forward in our heart, and our ancestors are always with us. So I definitely believe in a fact that when you cannot, basic scientific principle, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. And so I don't know what I'm tapping into. I'm still trying to understand that. So I'm as amazed sometimes when the depth of information comes through and the person in front of me is like, there's no way you could know that. And I just trust it now. I don't try and get into my ego or my head about it. But I know for the life of us that we cannot die, that we live on.
Yeah, you were saying before there is a medium fair circuit, which is a fascinating concept of a group of mediums travelling around hotels. But there is a significant difference between different mediums, isn't there? They have different approaches, different styles, different levels of nonsense sometimes.
Oh, well, you couldn't put it more clearly. There's no regulation in Ireland for this industry. So you can do any of these fair circuits, or even set yourself up with a table. I remember one fair many years ago, a lady went and bought a deck of cards and set herself up at the end of a stand and start charging €50. And then the people she was reading from the book, and people start going, hold on a second, why am I giving you €50? So, and also I believe each medium, we're all different people. So there's not everyone's going to like me. Someone will look at me and go, God, she talks too much or whatever. They won't be drawn towards me, and that's perfectly okay. And also my life experiences and every book I've read, every song I've listened to, every movie I've ever watched will all contribute to that experience of a medium. So certain people will be attracted to me because their spirit team are drawing them to me. So one medium could be great for one person and not for another. It's not because the medium's bad, it's just a different life experience.
Sure. Fantastic. Listen, I can't recommend enough you go and check out Fiona. You'll find her on Instagram or on fionafaery.ie. And thanks a million for your time today.
Thank you, Niall.